Thank you. Before we get started, I'm just curious, like, who I'm speaking to. Can I just see a show of hands of how many people here work in this business already? And how many people, thank you, how many people are aspiring to break into this business? Great. All right, so I'll give you a quick rundown on me. I'm an LA native. I became inspired by filmmaking probably at a very young age when I grew up in a neighborhood called Westwood Village, which was surrounded by movie theaters. There was about 7 movie theaters. And as a punk middle school kid, my mission was to be able to find a way to sneak into every single theater to watch movies. And I accomplished that. So I was able to have either a hanger outside a door or know which door to get in when people walked out. So I became passionate about films. And that kind of put a bug in me, just by watching movies, put a bug in me that I wanted to be a filmmaker. Didn't really know it until I moved on, became a even bigger punk kid in high school, and managed my way to squeeze my way through high school and ended up in junior college at Santa Monica College. I decided then that film was going to be the path that I wanted to go. Growing up in LA, being surrounded by it, I was told by somebody once, do something that makes you happy. And I think that's important for everybody. So whatever it is you do in life, I have kids now, and that's what I'm going to make sure they do. Whatever it is you guys end up doing, make sure you're happy about it. So you have to go do it every day. It needs to inspire. So I chose that path. I applied to 2 film schools as I was finishing up junior college. I applied to UCLA Film School, and I applied to Cal State Northridge's film school. UCLA required a portfolio, and which basically was either a script or a short film or whatever it was. I did not have the qualifications to do it, but I threw something together that was unacceptable and was not accepted to UCLA's film school, but was accepted to Cal State Northridge's film school. Now, Cal State Northridge's film school at the time, back in late 80s, was kind of new. It was called Radio, TV, and Film. And now I understand they're actually one of the top 20 film schools in the nation, but they weren't at the time. So I went to school there for a year, and then as you all probably know, nepotism is a huge tool in this business. I had a cousin through my father's second marriage who had a commercial production company in LA. And he, sitting on the beach one summer after I did a year of film school, he says, "You're interested in film? Why don't you come work for me in the summer? I have a couple commercials I'm doing, and you could be a PA." I said, "Great." So I went and worked for him, and I think my first commercial was an Alphabet's commercial, and one of my first jobs was separating the letters of the Alphabet's cereal so that we could spell out something in the bowl of milk for a shot of the milk. And it was great. I threw myself into it. It was an amazing experience. The energy of being on a set, the intensity, I knew right away that this is the place I wanted to be. So I worked my ass off for this guy for the whole summer. And at the end of summer, the guy says to me, if you don't want to go back to school, I'll give you a full-time job here. It was a tough decision, and I decided I'm going to give it a shot. Because I felt like after working for him in a company for 3 months, I truly, honestly felt like I could have gone back to the film school and actually taught some of the classes, because the teachers were so new and there wasn't a tremendous amount of experience in terms of production. If you wanted to go to that school and learn about, the comparisons of Frank Capra and Alfred Hitchcock, great, but I wanted to be in physical production. So the guy gave me a job. I started working as a commercial PA, and it went well for a bit. And then his company, like many commercial companies did in the late 80s, collapsed because there were so many, and the competition was so swift. So then I found myself, I was out of a job, but I had made enough contacts at that point where I was able to find other work as a freelance production assistant. And it went along like that for a while. I was able to carve out a living for myself as a production assistant in TV commercials. And that led to other things. I started to see other crafts. Thanks. I started to see other crafts that existed in the business that maybe I wanted to do. Maybe I didn't want to, stay in production. But there's so many other directions to go. And I was actually fortunate enough to have the opportunity to, be a hard enough worker that I would sometimes be offered, okay, well, we need an extra grip, can you figure it out? So I was able to figure it out and be an entry-level grip for a little bit. I was able to figure it out and be an entry-level prop person for a little bit. So I just kind of went with the flow, and then I found myself in the art department. I got on a TV series as a set dresser. And it was more freedom, and suddenly 4 years go by, and now I've been working in the art department. I've been working as a swing gang. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but basically dressing the sets before the crew comes in to shoot, and then wrapping the sets after. And then I transitioned myself onto set and was working as a on-set dresser, which is the person that's able to sit by camera and compose the frame basically with the cinematographer and the director, and you're looking at something and that chair looks better over there, or let's put a piece of art on the wall there. So now I'm in the art department and I'm on set, and a year or two go by, and I'm having a cathartic moment, and I'm looking around on set. I'm on, I could tell you the moment, I'm on a terrible film called Kickboxer 2. And I'm the on-set dresser, and I'm looking around, and I've been in the business now for probably 6 years or something, maybe 7 years. And I say to myself, what am I going to do? What in this business? And I look around, and whose job here would I want to do, or what can I do? What can I be successful at because this is not the place to be successful. It's a transitional place. I'm in the art department. The top of the art department is the production designer. I'm not qualified to do that. I don't want to go back to school and learn how to do that. So I look at the first assistant director, and here's a guy that's controlling the set. He's running the set. He's in the mix. He's making decisions with the director. And I believe to myself, this is a position I could pursue. So that's what I did. I basically went after that. I moved myself back into production through my contacts, talked my way into becoming an assistant director, went back. I actually got a job then for a producer and a director team developing scripts. And the director was a guy that just cranked out scripts, and he taught me how to break down scripts. And so I learned how to break down scripts and make a schedule out of them, the old-fashioned way with the strip boards. And so with that tool, I said, well, now I know enough about running a set just by being on a set, and now I know how to schedule a movie. I found a job opening on AFI, which is American Film Institute in LA, great film school. There's a director who was making a big movie. His girlfriend was Jennifer Jason Leigh. And this guy was making a film, and he was looking for an AD. So I convinced the guy that I could be his AD. I figured I could schedule your movie. And so I basically skipped a step in being a second AD, and I moved right into first AD. He had no money to pay me, so for 6 weeks, I worked for free for this guy just so that I could have my first credit as a first assistant director. The movie went fine. I had the credit now. And then I went out and hustled a job. My first job was a very low budget TNA movie called Calendar Girls. And I think we made a feature film in 10 days. And I finished the movie. I was the first assistant director. Now I had 2 credits. And then I just kept hitting the pavement, and I found a 3rd credit, and it was a very low-budget horror movie. Christopher Atkins starring in a movie called Die Watching. So I did this movie with for another very small, very quick budget, very small budget, very quick shoot. 3 credits on my resume, and now I'm you know, I've got a career mounting. So now I'm pursuing this goal of being a first assistant director and comfortable in it and knowing this is what I want to do. So long story short, or not so short, about 20 films later, then I ended up in at Concord, Roger Corman's company. I did 3 films there. So now I've got a resume that's being built, and I realized that my goal is now eventually to get into the Directors Guild of America. I was fortunate enough that during the period when I was non-union and trying to get into the DGA, indie films, there was a lot of non-union first-time directors coming up, and Sex, Lies, and Videotapes was kind of the model film back then that a lot of people were trying to replicate. It was a $1.2 million budget. You could shoot it in 4 or 5 weeks. So a lot of films started popping up like that with, you know, director-writers, first-time directors. So I kind of made that my little niche, and I started getting a lot of those films. About 20 films later, I had enough days to join the Directors Guild of America. So I submitted my days, I joined the guild, and now I was a DGA first AD. So I went on and AD'd a handful of films. I did a little TV. I found my way into HBO and did a couple series for HBO as an assistant director. And cut to, you know, nearly 20 years of doing this, my true passion, which is to be a filmmaker, not being realized. Now, I have to tell you that burnout starts to, you know, doing the same job for that long, you know, it's good for a lot of people, but I started to feel a little vacant and empty. My wife says to me, what do you say we take a year off and move to France? She's half French, she has a passport. Our kids are able to get French passports, so I decided to take a break from the business and walk away from it to gain a little perspective. So I take a break. We move our family to France. This is '07. I did a really interesting movie that didn't really do anything in Austin, Texas, called Fireflies in the Garden. Had Jennifer Jason Leigh, Ryan Reynolds, Emma Watson, Carrie-Anne Moss, Hayden Panettiere, and Willem Dafoe. Amazing cast, first-time director. Makes this movie, gets terrible reviews, goes nowhere. But while I'm doing the movie, as soon as I get back from the movie, I have work lined up on a series for HBO called In Treatment. So my wife says, you know, you've got 10 months of work lined up, we could save some money, let's just take a year off. So we take a year off, we go to France, amazing experience. 1 year is not enough. I'm able to figure out a way to make it 2, thanks to residuals on, as a first AD, residuals on In Treatment. Because In Treatment we shot 36 episodes, and we would do an episode in 2 days. So anybody interested in joining the Directors Guild, it could provide you a wonderful future. There's, you know, assistant directors are entitled to residuals. So I was able to fund our stay another year. And then I was unable to fund it anymore. And it was time to leave. We were living in the countryside. My wife wanted to come back. She wanted to live in a city. My kids were now bilingual. I was nearly bilingual by the end of the stay. So a lot had been gained from it. While I was there, when I moved there, I should have said, I bought a camera. This was pre-digital, so I bought a Panasonic DVX 100, and I said, we're going to gain a lot from this, but at the very least, I'm going to walk away from it. I'm going to have a movie. I'm going to shoot a movie. I'm going to shoot a short film. I didn't know what it was going to be. I just knew that I've got a year off. I'm going to make a movie. So I found a story through, what I was doing there, and I found something that inspired me, and I was through movies that inspired, and through where I was living, I came up with an idea, and my wife and I kind of came up with a concept, and then I basically wrote a movie and a little short film. It's a 20-minute short. And it was in French, so I cast French actors, and I just went through the process of putting together a film, and I shot the film. So then I had the experience of having shot a movie. I had perspective. I knew that after shooting this movie that I wanted to be a filmmaker. And I knew after 2 years I had no more money, but I had a film and I needed a job. I had 2 jobs that were offered to me very timely because I needed work, and one was in LA. It was the spin-off of a show called Scrubs, and one was the Vampire Diaries this is now in '09, and it was shooting in Atlanta. And I had been to Atlanta once to shoot a Reebok commercial, but knew nothing of Atlanta, knew nothing of what was going on or what was about to go on in Atlanta, and so I took the Atlanta gig, and I decided all those years of me working on films away never was great for my family. My kids didn't really respond well to it, so I decided that the job offer was it was 5 months. It was 12 episodes with the chance to do a back 9 if it gets picked up. So we said, fuck it, let's take a chance. Let's bring the family there. Let's see what happens. So we went. We came to Atlanta, and I did the very first episode out the gate, not the pilot, but the very first one shooting here in Atlanta. After being out of it for 2 years, I had to quickly brush off the rust. And, well, I think a lot of you know what happened with the show. So the show became a huge success. Atlanta exploded because of the tax incentives. And I had a legitimate job that was paying me quite well because they pay me as an out-of-towner. And so so I stayed on the show, and I used my movie as my trump card, and I from season 1 on, I'm like, someday I'd like to have an episode to direct. Yeah. Someday I'd like to have every season. Someday I'd like to have an episode. Here's my short film. What do you think? Here's my short. Your film's good. I could tell you can direct actors. Blah blah blah. Someday. So season 3, I decided to take a chance, and I basically put the word out. Well, if I don't get an episode to direct next season, I'm not going to come back. Was it true? I wasn't 100% sure, and I took a bit of a gamble letting that kind of slip out. And then at the wrap party for season 3, I say to the head executive producer, writer, Julie Pleck, I say to her at the wrap party, I pull her aside, this is not a drunk wrap party conversation. I really want to direct an episode next season. She goes, okay, we'll think about it. Season 4, they gave me an episode to direct, episode 13, midway through the season. It went quite well. They also gave some other people. Everybody wanted to direct. So they gave in season 4 the production designer, the script supervisor, myself, and the DP. Well, we broke, and everybody was going to be on the back 9. So we broke for Christmas break. And when we came back for the back 9, there had been a problem. The DP was no longer on the show. And I got the first episode out the gate. The episode went really well. And some others didn't go as well, the newbies. But great, I went back to being an AD. I finished out the season. Season 5, they're going to give me an episode for sure. At the same time, there was a backdoor pilot for the originals that was the spin-off show that was going. They decide they're going to give Allowitz an episode to direct on Vampire Diaries, but let's move him over to the originals and be the AD over there. And then when it's time for him to direct, we'll replace him. We'll figure it out. So I start the originals as a first AD, season 5. Well, a director in episode 4 drops out in season 5, and they say, let's give it to Allowitz. So I get that episode. Turns out it's a really powerful episode. And I'm going to show you clips from. There's an amazing stunt sequence, a huge car set, probably the biggest car stunt the show's ever done. And then a principal character has a funeral, and it's written really well. And the DP and I, now they have 2 DPs, and they're rotating, and the DP and I click, and we conceptualize this funeral sequence, and it goes off without a hitch. And turns out the episode comes out great. Julie Plec, who's the head of the show, is blown away by the episode, is caught several times crying during this funeral sequence. Somebody told me they saw her on an airplane watching it. She was crying. Another person told me walks into her office and she's in tears. So I was really fortunate, and me and the DP really killed it. Turns out they give me another couple episodes. So and then a director on the originals backs out. So season 5. I get 4 episodes of Vampire Diaries to direct and 1 originals, and that's a solid year for a director to have anywhere between 5 and I could live off of that comfortably. So I do 5 episodes last year, and then they bring me back this year. I've got 3 episodes of Vampire Diaries, and I'm in the middle of my originals episode right now. And now I'm out and about. Every time, what I do is every time I finish an episode, I try and go to LA. Because the director, based on the DGA requirements, gets 4 days to cut their episode. So you could do it via computer and email. I go to LA, I go sit in the room with the editor, and I put my little nuances, and I deliver something. So I think I have a vision. So I get a script, I have a vision, and then I try and put a little bit of my vision on, there's certainly a formula to making episodic TV, but if you can individualize it and make some sort of, come from a point of view, which I try and do, and it seems to be working. So I go to LA, I cut my episodes, and it's going well. So here we are. I've decided to stop ADing and just make directing a full-time. When I'm in LA, I edit, and then I have an agent. After my first episode of Vampire Diaries in season 4, it airs, and an agent in LA reaches out to me and says, calls Julie Plec and says, I'm trying to get a hold of Allowitz. I saw something in this episode. Is this guy signed? I want to sign him. So he reaches me. She tells me this. Can I give him your contact information? I'm like, I don't know. Let me do a second episode before I get involved in an agent. This is too early. He finds me on Facebook and convinces me, next time you're in LA, let's meet. So we meet, and this guy's he talks a good game. He's the agent of a director that comes through there that I really respect. He's the agent of one of the writers on the show that I really respect. I talk to these guys. Long story short, I sign with the guy. And now when I'm in LA, I edit, and he sends me on multitude of meetings, and I'm meeting with studios. And this is all still very new for me. I've directed now, I think I'm in my 9th episode of network TV. And I'm making it a full-time commitment, but it's all very brand new, but it is going well. And that's what I'm up to, and that's kind of how I got here. What I've done is I brought some clips of some of the stuff that and I'll set every one of them up, but Should we do a little question answer now, or do you guys want to watch kind of the stuff that I've been talking about?
One question.
Yeah.
It's a great story. I mean, it's your Hollywood success story. But what was it that gave you the confidence that you could make the transition? I mean, the assistant director job is a very unique job. You know, the traffic cop on the set. It's really a management job. It's less creative. In fact, it's kind of anti-creative because you've got to do what you are doing. What all of us want to do is to serve the director. So obviously you watched directors for many years and you internalized how you would do it. But what was it really that gave you the confidence and the ability to go on and then just do it and hit a home run that first time?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say it's anti-creative because I come from a creative point of view, and I couldn't have been in that job for 20 years and it be not creative. My job was to collaborate and facilitate the director's vision and make it better. And that's what filmmaking is all about for me. That's the beauty of this business. No matter what department you work in, when you at the end of the day, when everybody's made a contribution and you have amazing, you've photographed something amazing and everybody knows. I mean, I've had people come up to me, that was great, from every position. People have said, wow, that was really a great day. And everybody contributes. That is the beauty of this business. It's collective. And you people make me look good. And that's people could burn out of this business, but when you have a day when everything goes so well and you capture something really amazing, there's no better feeling. And no matter what position you're in, if you make a contribution, it's really special. And my job, when 20 years of being a first assistant director, I really always came from a director's point of view, and I really wanted to facilitate the vision. And at the same time, you're fiscally responsible to the producer. You're about watching the budget, watching the time. Time is money, so you really have to, at the same time, protect a director's vision and be responsible to a producer. It is probably the most difficult job. It is more difficult than being a director. And the only way for me to get through it, because I'm a visual storyteller. I've found over directing these episodes, that is what I want to do, and that's what I feel passionate about doing. And as an assistant director, I always had to have that point of view to be able to make it through the day, or else I would have burned out if I was just a traffic cop. So in terms of confidence, I don't know that it's anything that I learned along the way. I think it's something inside you. You have to, every time I made a leap up to a new position, I wasn't ready to make that leap. When I directed my first episode, you have to fake it to make it. And that is the truth in this business. But hopefully you have enough inside you to be able to pull it off. So I felt like I did, and you have to be confident. And confidence is a big part of it. So, and knowing when to speak and when not to speak is part of it. So just by being confident and putting yourself out there when you shouldn't be is not the right thing. But when it's time, it's the most important thing in this business is not an education, it's common sense. If you have common sense and confidence, I think you could go a long way in this business. So I'm a cocky motherfucker, and I felt like, what if I got to lose? This is what I want to do. I want to be a storyteller. And I'm gonna talk somebody into giving me the opportunity. If I fail, what? You only live once, right? So I got the opportunity, and the experience gave me the ability to execute. So between confidence and experience, I was fortunate enough to deliver something that people responded to.